All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. What we're witnessing right now all over the internet is the slow death. Well, I guess it's now the hastening death of rural America. It's done. The way of life is gone, and it's blowing up everywhere.
Now, I've never been as worried as I am now about whether or not my kids and grandkids will be able to carry on.
He said, I love you, Mr. Trump. I need to see the fruit of your love.
5 of my customers have committed. That's how serious that this is.
And what it costs for us to farm is astronomical now.
I farm with paid-for equipment. All my tractors are 50 years old, and I can't hardly make this deal work. I think the tariffs are the ice cream on the cake of a perfect storm.
After a horrible year last year where most farmers in Arkansas Delta lost money, this year's going to be worse.
We made a decision to go out this year in the spring. So my son will not be the seventh generation on our farm.
We're going to lose 25 or 30% of the farmers in this country if they don't do something. It has to be done, and it's not just here. It's everywhere.
Maybe it's time. Maybe it's just time for the robots to take over our farming. It seems to be the direction we're going in anyway, and this is exactly what these people voted for. I'm from rural America. I spent most of my time either in coal country or in deep poverty in Maryland. But this is something we need to talk about because, and honestly, it's going to make a lot of people deeply uncomfortable. I do understand that. A lot of us have a proclivity to want to help people, but we need to talk about the great American decimation of our rural farmlands. Now, before you start yelling at your screen talking about, the homeland, our American values. Let's be honest, what values? The value of the dollar buys less and less, and there's more opioid prescriptions in these small towns than there are people under 30. These places used to have thriving main streets that were the central hub of an iconic, beautiful American landscape. Drenched in racism? Yeah, probably. But now it's just supported by the general dollar and a couple pawn shops. The entire economic model that supported rural farmland America, the Midwest, is just simply evaporated. Because as much as we want to talk about the mom and pop stores being the cornerstone of Main Street, these people are just as quick to order from Amazon or shop at Walmart as they are to call a McChicken healthy. Like, there's a reason that no one lives there anymore. There's a reason why all the young people leave, because what's little Jimmy going to go to college and get a degree in sustainable agriculture and come back and work on the farm? No, there's no money in that. The farmers are just buried in debt, but the tariffs make it impossible for farmers to actually make a profit when 20-30% of all our grain is actually shipped outside of the United States. And now that's not being shipped anywhere because of the tariffs. There's no incentives for these people to come back because it's the writing's on the wall that way of life is done. But honestly, what did we expect? We hollowed out manufacturing. We consolidated farms until they were basically just one corporate-owned, monocropped, chemical-drenched hellscape. And we built even bigger highways so people can drive through there even faster. Not so that they can actually drive to these small towns, but so Tiffany, who's living her van life, best life, can hop from national park to national park when she's not going to festivals all summer long. And then we're gonna act like we're surprised when these towns dry up. It's like draining a pool and wondering why people aren't doing cannonballs anymore. But the politicians are going to show up every 4 years and promise you the world and say that they're going to bring back jobs. But what jobs? Like, the buggy whip factory isn't coming back, you know? Neither is the sense of community where every kid with half a brain cell left that podunk town and went to the big city. You know, they smile, they shake hands, they talk about God-fearing in America and how beautiful it was, the place that they come from, but they never actually go back there. They just go to their multi-million-dollar home in Nantucket and forget that these places even exist until next election season. It's the same thing when they bring out coal miners, calling them the salt of the earth. These are what true Americans are. But at the same time, gutting the unions, trying to take away any kind of regulations so that these people have no protection from black lung or whatever kind of hell-like symptoms they develop from a lifetime spent in the caves underneath the earth. These politicians are basically just vultures. They just spin around every now and then, they come down, they scrape up a few scraps of rotten meat, and then they just take off again. You know, this myth of the rural America, the tough, the rugged farmer that feeds America. That's something from the past. Have you ever been to a farming town now? It's just a bunch of people who are morbidly obese, who set their AI combines to go harvest and polish off a 30 rack of beer between commercials of NASCAR races. I'm not saying they didn't exist at some point. Maybe they did. I'm sure my great aunt in Iowa 100 years ago probably canned her own pickles and yelled at communists. But she's dead now, and so is this way of life. So at this point, what's even left? Just a demographic that's aging faster than the banana left out in the sun. The only thing that's there is a population with a profound sense of despair and depression and addiction and an overwhelming sense that they've been left behind, because they have been left behind. And it's something that's been happening for decades. It's been something that's been happening for 50 or 60 years. This whole, get big or get out in the farm culture, local farmers couldn't keep up, right? It just shut down the local economies in the small towns, getting rid of all the jobs and giving it over to corporations. Focus on overproduction. That's why when you drive through the Midwest, all you see is corn and soybeans. These farms aren't there to feed you. They're there to feed big agri in China. But the same people who run these farms are the same people who voted for tariffs on China. How did you not know that this would decimate your entire livelihood? So yeah, it's a bad thing. It's terrible because, our source of food is one of our biggest factors of our national security, but somehow we're just trading it off and expecting there to be no consequences. We can sit back and laugh at the rubes in rural America. You can do that, but understand that there are consequences to that farm culture breaking down. And if this is being done on purpose to consolidate that land into one central ownership and then having a price control where you can just inflate the cost of food, at the same time that no one can afford to go get groceries, it's just going to be like a holodomor. I don't see how it's any different at that point. But it's sort of kind of not their fault at the same time, because they were told that if they just work hard, go to church, do what they're told, that eventually their lives would turn around, right? This country would give them all the bountiful blessings that it's apparently promised them, that it's forgotten to give to anybody else except for 5% of the population. They're like a forgotten band that's still playing the greatest hits in a half-empty VFW, while the other half of the world is at Coachella, all torn off their faces on Molly. Even the music, they're still singing about tractors and whiskey, while at the same time the entire world is talking about self-driving cars and sex dolls replacing actual partners. It's like an entire population that just forgot to get a software update, and now it's just completely outdated. And as frustrating as it can be, they're necessary at the same time. Can't just do away with rural America, but it just seems to be offing itself voluntarily at this point. But I guess that's what happens when all the smart people leave the small town, so the only people left to breed over generations are the dumbest people who live there. This is all the same. It's all just one bad country song. That's what rural America is. There used to be all these eccentric cultures all throughout rural America, throughout the Midwest, the Southwest, Appalachians, the Deep South. All it's become one big monoculture that's born and bred in Nashville. They all believe the exact same things. They all know the exact same songs. They all believe the same political fairy tales. Every small town looks the exact same now. It's just a graveyard Main Street, unless it's an upper middle class rural town where no one's actually from there. Places where the denizens actually live in these small towns, they're usually just boxed up, boarded Main Streets with nothing there, like I said, except a Dollar General and a pawn shop. The real economy happens on the outskirts of town where Walmart came in. And maybe there's an Applebee's and a Starbucks. If you're lucky and you're chosen by God, maybe it's even Chick-fil-A. But that's it. That's as far as culture goes now. You know how sad it is when your culture breaks down and Christmas at Walmart is now a family thing? We're gonna get the family together and go pick out ornaments at a Walmart. These small towns used to have little Christmas stores. They used to have Christmas functions where the whole families came together. You still see it in other countries. But we've just swallowed this corporate bullshit in America for so long that we confuse reality with commercials. So when you see a video like this, and I think one of your natural instincts is to be like, oh, these poor people. But it's like, the innocence is an illusion. If you've ever lived in a small town, the kind of gossiping and backstabbing, everyone being in each other's business, the manipulation, Machiavellian machinations of Dolores, who runs the faith-based recovery at the Southern Baptist Church down the road. You can't trust anyone in a small town, but at the same time, some of the most lovable people, right? There are people who are just like caricature tropes of Americana. And there are great people in rural America. They still exist, but they are a dying breed because the vast majority of it is just the exact same kind of person. I love Nashville. Nashville is great, but by God, how many white boots and cowboy hats can I see? That place just smelled like whiskey, sweat, moral decadence, and pumpkin spice. It's disgusting. So what's the solution? See, that's the punchline. There is no solution to this. This is exactly what you voted for. It's the poorest population in the country lives in rural America. And at the same time, they're the ones celebrating things like the big beautiful bill, which is just hatcheting away at the social safety net that these people are, in some places, the majority of them are actually dependent on. Goodbye Medicare, goodbye WIC, goodbye rental assistance. You guys are just going to be living in the street, but hey, at least you got a nice landscape behind you. And in the end, they're not going to make any stories about it. No one's actually going to care. Listen, if it would have happened in San Francisco, if it would have happened in New York City or LA, I'm sure there'd be some kind of, sad movie made about it. But the fact is, anything that happens in rural America, no one actually cares about. I mean, Flint, Michigan isn't even rural America, but everyone forgot about that. If you're not in any of the major cities, no one actually cares. If you're not in the major cities, you live in a sacrifice zone. If you don't know what a sacrifice zone is, I'm sorry, you have an American education. I understand that. It just means that the resources that come out of your area are worth more than your lives. And that's what it is to live pretty much everywhere in America, everywhere. But it's even worse in rural America. But I think the Billy Jack bullshit fake country people who just cosplay like they're in the cast from Yellowstone, but everyone in their town knows that they're just addicted to Oxycontin and beat their wife. No one's going to cry about them leaving. But like I said, I think the real country people will survive. If you've ever known real country people, they're not going anywhere. They don't care. They don't follow politics. They don't give a shit. All right? They're not voting for the tariffs. You ever meet somebody who's like from the middle of a holler in West Virginia? You ask their opinion on the tariffs. You think they care? No, but ask them about like who the Mountaineers are playing next weekend. Yeah, they care about that. So we need good old ignorant people in America again. That's what makes America great. Just ignorant people, not people who are tuned in all the time. Because what happens when you get idiots who are tuned in is that their opinions get out there, and policymakers who know that it's easy to convince idiots who are gullible to eat the bullshit that they're selling. And they just end up getting used. And that's why rural America is in decline. Just get back in the tractor and go, and you would have been fine. But instead, you were more focused on the Marines invading Los Angeles. So, I'm sorry if half the country doesn't actually care if rural America goes away, because rural America has been celebrating any atrocity that happens in a blue area. But in the end, who knows, maybe it'll be entertaining enough that they will actually make a movie about it. And in the meantime, you can go ahead and buy some cryptocurrency and maybe start a yoga studio in the metaverse. Diversify your income or whatever. But I, like the rest of America, am patiently waiting for the Grapes of Wrath 2. I'm sure it's going to be a Hollywood banger. If you're still here at this point, everyone, appreciate your time. A little bit change in tone. I'm tired of being, so into it. Sometimes you just want to fire out some wrath and rage. It's a little bit what this is. Listen, I love rural America. I love it. It's where I'm from. It's what I believe in. But there are serious problems with it. And there's just a social contagion of politicized idiots that have overran small towns with their giant fucking flags and bumper sticker culture that's ruined small town America. Small town America is full of poor working class people. At what fucking point do you start voting for big business? You should be ashamed of yourself more than anything else. If your grandparents were still alive, they'd probably kick your ass for voting as you do. But hey, it is what it is. Everyone, thank you for stopping by. I hope you have a good one.